Welcome to our first LinkedIn Live for 2026, actually. Today's one is going to be all about autonomous agents explained. So let us know in the chat, who here has built an agent before? Do you know what an agent is? Or maybe are you experienced with it? So there are a few different sides of it, but we're going to be focusing on the autonomous piece instead. And I'd love to see some comments there already. Those just joining, feel free to say hello in the chat. And a bit about me. So my name is Rishona. I work at Akkodis as a technology evangelist. I often run these LinkedIn Lives for Akkodis, so we may have met before if that's the case. If not, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Always happy to keep in touch there. And with that said, let's kick things off for today. So I thought we'll start off with the basics here, just in case if we have some people maybe who are very new to the idea of what an autonomous agent is. So essentially what I've got planned for this session is to highlight how this is different from your typical conversational agent. And then we're going to go into how you can build one in Copilot Studio and the key things you need to know there, as well as give you some ideas and inspiration on how what you learned today maybe might give you some ideas on how you can apply this to the work and your business processes back in the office. When we hear the word agent, the first thing that comes to mind is usually that conversational agent. You know, you might be on a website getting some customer support, or you're about to make a booking for an appointment that you have. When we think about agents, there are two sides. So you've got a conversational agent and the other type, which is your autonomous one. Your conversational agents are the ones that you talk to, and they do something for you if you ask for it. You give it a question, you tell it to go and do a task, and then it responds to you in that moment. This is helpful for quick actions, getting simple information, but it doesn't continue working once that conversation ends. Autonomous agents is another whole side to the world of agents. These go a step further. Instead of waiting for you to go and ask it to do something, it notices when something happens. This could be you get a new email to your inbox or a shared inbox. There's a change in a record in your database. And then it starts doing its work on its own. It figures out what needs to be done. It completes multiple steps for you, and it can take action across your different systems. And this is all done without you needing to prompt it. So a simple way to think about it is your conversational is more, I want something to assist me with something. Autonomous is it's doing something for you on your behalf. Now, if you are new to the world of agents, the tool that I'm going to be showing you today is called Microsoft Copilot Studio. This is Microsoft's tool for building out your agents, whether that's a conversational one or an autonomous one, without needing how to code. So soon, when we get into the demo part, I'll show us an example of one that I've spun up and then talk through the key components that you would need to set up to get an autonomous agent up and running for you, using Copilot Studio as the place where you'll build and manage it. Before we get into that, what about some ideas on what you might want to apply an autonomous agent to? Well, it could be something with operations, marketing, HR, sales. So here are some ideas to get you thinking. For operations, you might have an agent that can track your inventory or logistics. It could trigger multiple workflows like procurement or an incident response. Marketing could use it to react to new leads coming through or responses you get for campaigns. Scoring and routing leads to the right place for follow-up. HR, so this is a similar example to what I'll show you today. Automating an onboarding process for an employee, or what are the steps that need to happen once someone is no longer working for you. Changes in records, sales could use it to update CRM records, schedule follow-up tasks, process their inbox. IT can use it to handle service requests when they come through. customer service for triaging new cases, gathering information, so going into the right places to go and recover that, sending updates to the customer, and finally, some ideas for legal. You might have agents that can monitor the dates you've got on contracts and then kick off approval workflows to run when those come across, or goes and collects documents and requests for them when it's needed. Okay, so what we're going to go through today is show you how we can build the one that I've set up here. So it's not too complex of a one that I built here to set you up to show us for today, but I want to give you an idea of what the different pieces are that we need to put together to get an autonomous agent up and running. So I thought we'll go through this scenario of showing you an employee offboarding agent, and this is what it's going to go through. Well, what we've got on the left side is how the agent will kick off and run on its own. It's going to notice that there's a change in the status of an employee in this application or this database that we're working with. And the tool I'm going to use for this is Dataverse, which, by the way, is Power Apps Dynamics 365, if you're familiar with that. So change happens. Next step, the agent is going to go and notify IT about the change, because maybe there's some things they need to collect from them, like their laptop or any equipment. So we'll go send an email out. Perhaps they want a way to manage the tasks they need for offboarding that employee. At the same time, it will create a task in Planner. Now, once that's done, maybe it looks for extra conditions it needs to monitor for. Did that employee have any outstanding expenses the accounts team needs to know about? Anything else that might be a concern before they go and they get offboarded? And then after that, we can get the agent to go and send an email out to the employees. Now, I am seeing some questions here in the chat. So how is this different from Power Automate? Good one. And that is actually one of the most common questions when it comes to autonomous agents. Now, when I show this to you, you're going to see that an autonomous agent doesn't necessarily have a defined answer or path for everything. It kind of adapts, it uses its knowledge and what it can find to sometimes change the course of what it needs to do. Power Automate, which is your tool for building your processes, are very static. So you give it the defined step, exactly what it should say in that step, which is great for, the shorter tasks you do, things that maybe don't have many different alternatives or conditions to look for. So it all comes down to, what the need is. By the way, Power Automate can connect to your agents too. So this agent I'm showing you today, you could build the agent, but then you might also have a part of the process built with Power Automate that can initiate. So the thing with that is that they're all connected. Depending on what you want to do, you may be using one or the other as well. And the other questions I see in there, how do agents handle authentication? For example, when I would normally have to go through multi-factor across different applications to complete the task. Yes, good question too. It's all in the setup of the agent. I'll show you the settings area where you can go and configure that. So just a note on that without getting too into the weeds when it comes to security, is that you can set it up so that it just runs from a single person's accounts that's authenticated already, or the person can go, the individual who's running it can go and do it itself. So you can all set up, which accounts are being used and how that works in the back end across what those different applications are too. And absolutely, you can integrate this with your other systems. Now, I've just kept it simple. I've stuck to the Microsoft things here today. We'll look at Dataverse, Planner, Outlook, but it can very well connect to, your other systems like SAP, databases, CRM systems that you use. If you are familiar with Power Automate, by the way, those same connectors, the tools and services you can bring there, you can bring into your agent too. So yes, this gives you the flexibility that you need to coordinate different pieces, processes, across the variety of different tools and services you use on a day-to-day basis. Okay, so this is what I was going to show us today. Let's see how that agent would run, and then I'll show us the back end of how that was set up. Now, I'll show you what the user side of it would be. Here I'm in a Power App, which is, let's say, my CRM system that I'm using. I've got my app. I'm a person who's working in HR, and I can see a list of my employees there. Carolyn is ready to leave, so we need to start the onboarding process for her. So working in HR, I can come to my tool here. I can open up Carolyn's profile, and I can make some changes to this. Let's say her employee status is set as current. I want to go and change that to be a former employee. So this is going to be what we call the trigger for our agent, because after I go and make that change, we're going to see a series of different things occur. Now, if we think back to the process I showed us before, IT needed to be notified. So what can you see in this profile of Carolyn's? We've got some info like her job title, her start date, any equipment she might have, any expenses she might have that are still outstanding. So we're going to see some of these things come through in the next few steps as well. By the way, all the emails are coming to me today, but just imagine that it's being sent to the right person, to IT, to accounts, to the employee, just to make it easy for the demonstration. It's all going to me. Okay, so what did IT get? IT got this email come through to them with this offboarding notification. It's got a title, the subject here with her name, and it's a message telling me she's ready to leave. This is her job title, and it's pulled through, if you remember on the app, some of the details like the equipment she might have. It's told me it's also created a planner task. Let's check out the planner task. I'm using Microsoft Planner here. I've just pinned this into Microsoft Teams to make it a bit easier. And you can see here that it's gone and created this planner task with a nice descriptive title of what I need to go and complete. So someone working in IT, I can now use this to go and manage the process and completion of that. Well, what else happened? We wanted to send Carolyn a goodbye or a farewell message, maybe notify her of any outstanding things she might want to do. Let's pretend I'm Carolyn now. I'm checking my email. The agent, as part of that process, has also sent me a farewell message. Dear Carolyn, as you leave your position, we want to wish you well. Now, all of this was done by the agent that's orchestrating this all. So now that we've seen it in action, let's take a look at what's happening behind the scenes of it. I'm going to start off here in Copilot Studio. So this is the tool we use to go and build our agent out. If you've ever built, say, a conversational agent with this, so the setting up steps are the same. You can open up Copilot Studio, create a new agent. But what's different between this autonomous agent are some of the things that we're going to see here in the setup of it all. So we have a few different areas that we're going to look at. There's something called trigger, knowledge, tools, instructions, and finally, testing this out. So really, what's doing the work there is what I can see on this page. I've got my instructions that are guiding the agent to tell it what that process needs to be. So I'll come back to that in a moment. We've also got our knowledge here, tools, and our triggers. Now, I'll mention this at the end as well. You have the ability to also connect other agents to agents, which means you can pass off certain tasks to different ones. let's start off by giving the agent a trigger. So the trigger is what's actually going to get the agent to go and kick off. So if you remember, an autonomous agent doesn't actually need you sitting there and talking to it. It recognizes for something to happen, some change in a system, and then it goes and it runs on its own. So your trigger might be something that happens on a recurring schedule, something is updated in SharePoint, someone submits a Microsoft form, a new email arrives, which could be a great one for maybe customer service scenarios and triaging issues. Plan a task is completed. So these are just the featured ones, but there are a whole lot more. By the way, if you go over into all, you can browse through that. Now, if you're familiar with Power Automate, they're very similar ones to what you can see there. So my trigger in this case is I used a Power App, which, by the way, is same thing as Dynamics 365, if you're familiar, as my system of choice. And that uses this trigger from Dataverse as mine. So this is what I set up beforehand. Essentially what I've done here is I've pointed it to my employee area in Dataverse. So what it's going to do is really just monitor for a change that happens in that employee area. Now, if this is getting too complicated for you when I just clicked in here, that's fine. You essentially usually don't need to go into this, but just to show you that you can actually pick what you want it to monitor for. Like it could be looking for changes in expenses and employee feedback. So you can pick what area it's looking at. I've got mine connected up to the employees. Okay, let's move on to the knowledge next. Now, what I'm showing you now are the different pieces, but then I'll show you how it all kind of pulls together to work. Knowledge doesn't need to pull out information from anywhere. If we go back to that email that we sent IT, you could see that it had the employee's name, their position, their equipment. So that's got to come from somewhere, right? So that's actually coming from that same place. Dataverse, my Power App here, where I've got that employee information. So what I've simply added in my knowledge is I've pointed it to my knowledge source for Dataverse. So it can actually go and see what information is sitting in there. Other types of knowledge sources you could add, you can connect it up to SharePoint, OneDrive, perhaps if it has to look through some files of yours, your other systems that you use like Dynamics 365, Salesforce, ServiceNow. So you've got a few different options here on where it can pull information from. Okay, your tools. You got your trigger. Your tools now are, once that process is running, what different systems, actions is it going to take? Well, in mine, it had a couple of emails to send out. So I have just set up an action or a tool here to get it to go and send an email. The other thing it needs to be able to do is go and create a task in Planner. So just to show you a bit about that, send an email. I won't get into this too much right now, but this lets you just make some additional configurations and settings around that. So if you wanted it to make sure or to define where it gets the information from that email, doesn't need to ask a question, doesn't need to go and find it from a particular spot to send that email. This is just really to give it some guidance on where it should get the information from to go and send the email. And then similar stuff I can see with my Planner tool to create a task. If I wanted to, I can go and set some things here, like which plan does it go to? What's the title of the Planner task? So really, these things give you the option to hard code or write some content in there already. But what I've done in my case is that it's actually going to be determined as the agent runs, rather than having these things preset. So that kind of goes back to the difference, I suppose, or one of the other differences between Power Automate versus autonomous agents. Oh, and other tools you can add. So again, this is very similar to, if you're familiar with Power Automate, the process to go and build out those longer steps that you can do. You can connect it up to a single action, like send a Teams message, send an email, or you can also build an entire workflow out. So I see one there, a comment just there around, approvals, could it go and action a task? So yes, absolutely. What you can do is you could use a combination of the connectors, or you might even set it up as a flow where it will wait for something to happen. So it can go and send that approval out. It can wait for the response to come back, and then it can go and move on to the next step. So you have quite a lot of control over the orchestration of this, when things happen, when they shouldn't happen, what are the alternative paths it should take under different circumstances. Okay, so you got your trigger, knowledge, tools. All we've really done at the moment is put this stuff into the agent, but we need to tell it how to use these things, how to use the trigger, how to use the knowledge, what those tools are going to do. So the instructions are really key to your agent. This is where you're giving it the kind of path it needs to take, the tone it should use, really what its purpose is. And it uses this so it knows how to perform. So let's take a look at what I've got in my instructions. Now, typically when you build out or you're writing your instructions, it is going to take a bit of testing. Did you maybe miss some important detail? You can always go back and change what you've got in here to make it clear to the agent. So what I've got in mind is I'm just writing naturally as I would speak. You're an employee offboarding agent. Your role is to manage the offboarding process when employee status changes. You can give it some guidelines. Maybe how do you want some things formatted? Is there a particular tone or style of email it should write in? Trigger condition. So I've stated here what is going to kick it off. So I've just given it an overview to say here that if the employee becomes former, then initiate the workflow, and it's going to run these two things, notify IT and send the goodbye email. Now, for each of those two actions, I've, again, given it some additional instructions on what needs to happen there. So what did I put in here? Well, as I write the instructions, I can also tag those things that I showed you before. So I can point it to some of those tools to run, some topics. Let's just zoom out a bit there. My screen, I can't see it at the bottom there. But just to show you here, you can point it to one of your tools you've set up. You can even point it to another agent that you've built. So with my one here, I've simply just said, use this action I set up. You need to email this. By the way, I just wrote my email in there, but you can definitely get it to pull it from somewhere else. And just some guidance on what that email should look like. So this is very different to actually writing the exact script for the email. Yes, you could absolutely do that, but this is generative AI. So I'm simply just giving it some guidance here. Tell them the employee's leaving, tell them you need to collect the equipment, get a list of the equipment from that record. So that was that knowledge coming in here. And then it goes and it will craft what that email looks like. So it's got that bit of flexibility in it. And finally, when the trigger is activated, use that create a task tool based on what needs to be completed. Oh, and last one, send a goodbye email to the employee. So what we've just got here, we're telling it to look at the email address of the employee who's leaving, told it what field it should get it from. So if you look here, I've got it in my email field on my application. And then craft the email, be respectful and professional, wish them well and thank them for their contributions. when you write your instructions, they may not necessarily look exactly the same as mine. And like I said, it may take a bit of back and forth between testing it out, seeing what you need to put in there. Because as you test it out, you will kind of get an idea of what's working well, what isn't. Does it mean more restrictions on certain things? But think of this as the orchestrator for it all. Okay, now just on the testing piece, since this is an autonomous agent, it's not necessarily waiting for me to go and type something in. But Copilot Studio has some quite in-depth testing features here that you can use. So every time the agent goes and it runs, over here I can go and check out the activity for it. So I can see a list here of when it was running. That looks like the one I just did in my demo now. So you can always come back, see what path it took. You can see, if you really want to get into the depths of it, what was actually used in those different actions that ran. So it gives you a nice way to go and review to see, did the agent work well? How did it respond? Did it maybe fail at a certain point? To go and get that feedback on where it might need some improvements. And just because we had a question about it, there are some further things you can do here as well, such as in the settings area, where you can just put some restrictions around, the authentication of it. As well as, I know we had a question about authentication before. So when you go and you add in your different tools, your knowledge, your triggers, you can set up just which account is being used for that. Just taking a read through the questions that we've got. Not sure if I answered this one before. I think I might have, just on the different systems it can connect to, like SAP, Salesforce. Yeah, so I've just used the Microsoft ones for today. But really, yeah, we've got a wide range of different connectors that you can hook it up to. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the ones that I've shown you today. There are a good number of ones available here that aren't just Microsoft. So SAP, Salesforce, it can definitely work across the non-Microsoft things as well. Okay, so let's see where we're at. Well, those are the basics of setting up the agent. What if you wanted to build something a lot more complex? Well, I mentioned before that your agents have the ability to talk to one another. So let's think about this offboarding process we were just looking at. In this case, I just had that one agent that did things. It sent the email to IT, it sent an email to the employee, created a plan, a task. But what if you're in the scenario where you've got maybe a range of different tasks, different departments needing to handle things based on that happening? You can connect your agents up as an orchestrator. So think about this. Let's say we've got an incoming request. It could be a form that's submitted, maybe a customer inquires about something. So let's say we've got this coordinator agent, which is the one that's going to be orchestrating all what needs to happen when this request comes through. That coordinator agent, you can use that as a way to decide which specialized agents then need to be involved. So think about it. Maybe it's got a team of mini workers under it. So it knows which ones it needs to go and call in the right scenario. So maybe that could go to an information analyst agent. So it can review any documents, find the data related to the request. It then might go to a verification agent that could maybe do some checks and verify the customer or the person's information. Decision agent, one that can now take all the information that it's got and recommend an action. Then you could also have one that can actually do some updates to your business system. You could very well put it all in the one agent, but you may also find it easier to manage if you've got specialized agents set up, and then you can connect them all. This allows for human review too. So another important point about this is, yes, your agent is there to help you with these basic repetitive tasks, but you can also bring a human in for approval. And I know we had a question about that earlier. So you can always get it to pause at certain stages, get it to be validated by a human to go and check and approve it before it actually goes and continues. So at least then you have a bit more confidence around what it's doing is correct and it's following the right paths. And just on the part on connecting your agents with one another, so simply you would build all of those child agents or the mini agents that it's got underneath it as agents of their own in Copilot Studio. And then you've got an area here where you can simply just, connect it up. And then in your instructions, you can give it some guidance on when it should call each agent and when it's used. Okay, we're getting towards the end of the session here. I might just take a pause, send any other questions through. I'll take a read through those. How far away are Copilot agents from being able to talk in real time to customers, a call center or help desk? That is already there already. So I didn't do it in my demonstration today, but so with Copilot Studio, you can give it a voice channel. When you set up your agent, you can pick what channel you would like this to be deployed to. And you've got the voice one too. So it could very well be, you set up your agent as you normally would. So you can give it what it needs to say and do, but rather than people talking to it and writing it out, it's just a speech conversation. So that's already up and running. I see another question there. Biggest hurdle for agents right now is integration. Would love to hear your thoughts on the best way to give agents hands in legacy systems. This is relatively new. In Copilot Studio, they've introduced this tool called computer use. I don't know if you ever heard of RPA or a tool called Power Automate Desktop. So these are tools that you can use for automation for legacy systems. If you see the ones that I pointed out today that I could, easily bring into my agent, like SharePoint, Dataverse, Salesforce, those are already built in. But for your legacy systems, they're likely not connected to this. So in that case, there is this feature called computer use that you can use in Copilot Studio. So what you do in this case is it's seeing what you need to do on a website or on one of these old school applications that you have. Now, I don't know if it's going to open up here, but go check it out later. It is relatively new, so you may not see it appear yet on your end. But this is where you can record yourself doing things in that legacy system or the website. You can give it some instructions and guidance on how it needs to use those tools to hook it up there. So the good thing about this, it allows you to use your newer modern systems, but also let your legacy and those older applications be part of that automation process too. So Copilot Studio lets you really connect all of those pieces together, and you can automate across your older and your newer things. Keep the questions coming. We've got a few minutes left here and might start heading over into our wrap up for today. Thank you so much for coming along today. Hopefully this has given you some good ideas on ways that you can possibly start using autonomous agents. Maybe is there a business process that you have that you think could be easily replicated and replaced by using this tool instead? Let us know what your ideas are. Go and have an explore of the tool as well. We'd love to hear from you. We're going to be sharing some further resources in the chat in a moment, so please go and check that out. We've got a link to our feedback survey for today. We'd love to hear what you thought about the session. And we've got more of these planned for the year as well. Let us know if there are any topics that you're particularly keen to see. And we're happy to consider that for some of these future LinkedIn Lives that we run. Would love for you to also go and check out our Microsoft ebook that we've got. We'll share a link to that as well. So this is a great next step if you're looking for some further information after today, which goes into this new way of working, where we're going to see AI agents increasingly play a key role for us. And always reach out to us. We're always on hand to help you with your needs, whether that's building agents, if you need any training or want to upskill your teams on Copilot agents, Copilot Studio, let us know. Okay, I'll just switch back to the comments, see if we've got anything else before we close out for today. And we do actually have another question. From a practical delivery standpoint, how do you see Copilot-based autonomous agents realistically replacing L1 roles, not just assisting them? What patterns have you seen where agents can own end-to-end L1 workflows, triage, decision resolution, and audit? So, good way to put that is it may not necessarily replace anyone's role completely, but it's there to assist them and do the basic work so then they can focus on the things that are actually going to need that human intervention and attention. Let's think back to the example of customer service, right? So let's say you've got an agent that's there answering questions. You might have the very basic stuff that always gets asked. An agent could go and find the answer and respond to it that way. You likely may still want someone there for oversight. So the key thing about this is you're always still going to have that person who can maybe check on things, approve things if you need, but the very basic repetitive stuff, they don't necessarily have to do anymore if the agent can handle that first level. But then once it gets a bit more complicated, maybe that issue isn't resolved with the readily available things, the customer comes back to them, then that could be a point where you've got the human worker actually intervening there. So way to think about it's not a complete replacement, but is there to make those simpler tasks automated with, of course, that human oversight too. Oh yeah, agent in call center and help desk. That's a great one. There is, I don't know if you're familiar with Dynamics 365 customer service. So there is a contact center application and solution that they have that can do all this. There's some pretty cool stuff. So you can have things like a live chatbot on your website. People can talk to it or call it up as well. And you can actually see the agent going to search for knowledge. It can answer or draft a reply back based on what the customer said, what the knowledge said. So it can kind of proactively go and look for this information to go and answer it. So that's definitely an interesting one. And there's quite a bit that Microsoft has done in the space on customer service and contact centers. Okay, I think that looks like all the questions. Either way, we're on hand. Feel free to contact us. I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn as well if you would like to reach out to me after the session. And thank you so much for coming along today. Hope you've learned a lot and looking forward to seeing you at the next one.
Engineering a smarter future together.